Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our spring semester. Welcome to our course on biblical reflections, finding yourself in the stories of the book of Genesis. For those that are with us for the very first time, I welcome you to the Caneo Jewish Academy, and I hope that this will be the first of many learning opportunities you experience with us. We look forward to be able to welcome you back into our physical classroom in the very near future, but we also intend on keeping a Zoom program for our adult education going even after the pandemic is officially over, so that all of our students from out of the area, from out of the country, from out of the state can continue to participate. Our goal here at the Academy is to open the Torah and Judaism for you so that you can find the beauty and the brilliance of your own heritage. And hopefully it will whet your appetite for further growth in your own level of observance in Judaism. I begin with the parable that I've told often about this father that has a son. Father's a very successful businessman. The son is not doing well in school, drops out of school, hangs out at home all day, does very little. The father is frustrated and concerned about his son. Being a successful businessman, he says to his son one day, "Son, you're sitting home, you're doing nothing with your time. You might as well learn to become a businessman. It's really not that difficult. I'm going to teach it to you. The whole concept of business is to buy wholesale and sell retail." Let me explain what that means. When you buy in bulk, when you buy in large quantities, that's called wholesale. When you buy in large quantities, you get it at a discounted price. You then bring the product home to a small village like where you live. You set up a shop here. You sell the product here individually, retail. You charge a markup on that. You make a profit. You don't keep the profit. You reinvest it in the business and you buy more product. And you keep doing this over and over. And before you know it, you're a successful businessman like me. The son says, "Wow, that's so easy. That's so simple. I can do that." Father says, "I'm going to start you off. Here's a sack of gold coins. Here's the address of the wholesale marketplace a few towns over. Go there, buy something wholesale, bring it back, sell it retail, get yourself busy. Let's do something with your life." Son is so pleased, so happy, so excited that his father trusts him. He takes the sack of gold coins. He's off to the marketplace. He's standing there, this naive kid with a sack of gold coins in his hands. And the sharks that are all around him, a hungry businessman comes over and says, "Son, are you here to buy something wholesale?" He says, "Yes, I am." "Well, it's your lucky day. Come with me." He follows this fellow into a warehouse. In the warehouse, there are 10 wagons. And he tells this kid, "I'll give you all 10 wagons for that one sack of gold coins that you have." Kid's all excited. "All these wagons for one sack of coins?" "Yep." "Well, what's in the wagons?" "In the wagons, you have millions and millions of toothpicks." He hears the word millions. He's all excited. "Millions and millions?" "Yeah, millions and millions. Toothpicks. Wow, it's great. Great deal." Gives him the sack of gold coins, comes parading home. His father's waiting for him, sees 10 wagons coming at him. "Wow, son, that quick? What did you get? What did you get?" He says, "Dad, you're going to be so proud of me. I bought 10 wagon loads filled with millions and millions of toothpicks." The father looks at his son. "You idiot, you. Toothpicks? You're never going to sell millions of toothpicks in a town like this. There's no way you're ever going to sell it. We're going to be stuck with this junk. What did you do to me?" And he starts yelling at his kid. His kid is all insulted, embarrassed. He runs to his room crying. A day goes by and the father realizes it really wasn't the kid's fault. I mean, he gave him a 5-minute workshop on how to be a successful businessman. So he calls his son out of the room and he says, "Son, I'm sorry. It was really my fault. I didn't ever really explain to you that you need to think about the second part of the transaction, and that is, can you sell the product? Is it a product that you can sell? I know you can buy it wholesale. The question is, can you sell it? Because if you can't sell it, we're stuck with the junk." "Dad, I won't let you down." And he tells his son, what you have to think is the marketing of it. How are you going to advertise it? How are you going to market the product to get the buyer to come buy it from you? Dad, I won't let you down. Gives him another sack of gold coins. Goes to the marketplace. Again, he's standing there, and again, some shrewd businessman comes over. Son, would you like to buy something wholesale? And he says, not so fast this time. I learned my lesson. Depends what it is. Come with me. To the warehouse they go. 10 wagons once again, all for one sack of gold coins. Not going to do it so fast. What's in the wagons? In the wagons are 10 wagon loads filled with shofars, ram's horns. And it happens to be a month before Rosh Hashanah. The son thinks to himself, marketing, it's brilliant. A month before Rosh Hashanah. Do you have your shofar yet? It's that simple. I got a shofar for you. Gives over the sack of gold coins, come parading home. Father's waiting for him. Son, what did you get? Dad, I didn't let you down this time. I stopped and I think, how can we market it? How can we sell it? And indeed, I bought a product that I can sell. What did you get, son? I got 10 wagon loads filled with shofars. Shofars? Are you crazy? This town has one synagogue. Everyone goes to that one synagogue. That one synagogue has 20 shofars. No one needs a shofar of their own. They all go to the synagogue and they listen to the rabbi blow the shofar. What are we going to do with 10 wagon loads filled with shofars? Again, he yells at his kid, and his kid runs to his room crying. A few days go by. The father realizes he has a problem. Not the son in the room. He'll deal with that another time. But right now he's got 10 wagon loads filled with toothpicks blocking one driveway and 10 wagon loads filled with shofars blocking another driveway. And he can't get his own horse and buggy into his property. And so he calls up a professional tradesman. And he tells this professional tradesman, I'm going to give you these 10 wagon loads full of toothpicks. Whatever you can trade it for, whatever you can barter it for, just get it off my property. Sends him on his way. He calls another tradesman. I have 10 wagon loads filled with shofars. Just get rid of it. Trade it for anything you can get for it. Sends him on his way. 2 days go by. Father sitting on the front porch of his house, on his rocking chair, rocking away, drinking some lemonade, and he sees suddenly a cloud of dust from the right, a cloud of dust from the left. And he bursts out in laughter because he realizes that what happened was that the tradesman with the toothpicks must have met the tradesman with the shofars, and they swapped. And each one is now coming back with the other guy's junk. And all 20 wagons are coming right back to his property all over again. And he's rolling on the floor in laughter. The son hears the laughter. He hears his father laughing. He comes running out of his room. What's so funny, Dad? What's so funny? He starts telling him, I will call the tradesman. I gave him the toothpicks that you brought me. I gave the other guy the chauffeurs that you brought me. I had 20 wagon loads blocking the driveway of the house thanks to you, my dear son. And now guess what? They're back again. I can't get rid of your junk. So the son is staring at his father with a straight face. He's not even smiling. He's not laughing. And the father's trying to explain to him, isn't this funny? Look at these guys. They came back, they met. And the son says to the father, this isn't right. This really isn't right. It's not fair. When you sent me, a naive kid, to the marketplace, and I came back with this stuff, you yelled at me, you insulted me, you called me names. And here you have these professionals, and they come back with the same stuff that I came back with, and now you're laughing. Why didn't you laugh when I came back with it? And the father says to his son, my dear son, I should never have yelled at you. I should never have insulted you. For that, I apologize. I'm wrong. I should never have done that. But don't compare the two. Don't compare the two. You see, them I sent out with junk, and they came back with junk. I thought it was funny. But you I sent out with gold. And when you're sent out with gold, you need to come back with gold. You need to have something of substance. My dear friends, we have been sent into this world with gold. The Torah, the Word of God, the revelation of God through words. It's a pathway to guide us through life. Gold. We need to use this gold wisely. We need to invest our time, our limited time on earth wisely. Let's not squander the opportunity. Let's not invest in junk. And so we have a Torah. Let's open that Torah. Let's make that Torah part of our lives. Let's at least look into it and see, is there something here for me? And so we have a Torah. We have the 5 books of Moses. We have the books of the prophets. We have the sacred writings. We have the oral Torah comprising the Mishnah and the Talmud. We have the Medrash, which are the stories of the Bible. We have the Kabbalah. We have the Zohar. We have the Code of Jewish Law. And we've been blessed with great rabbinic insight and commentary in this world of Torah. And the more we delve into this world, the more we discover that it's not a book of some archaic laws. It's not ancient text. It's not museum material. But it's a set of teachings. It's a guide. It's a compass that leads us through day-to-day life. Day-to-day life, even in modern times. Yes, today, April, the year 2021. And it's just as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago in the wilderness of Sinai. Which leads me to the discussion of Bible stories, the stories of the Bible. Billions of people are familiar with these stories, right? Movies, Broadway productions, can't get enough of them. The story of Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat was big on Broadway, very popular. Of course, Charlton Heston and the 10 Commandments, big, still huge. Samson and Delilah. Splitting of the Sea was a big exhibit at Universal Studios for decades. Interesting question that one can ask. Are people more familiar with the stories of the Bible than the laws of the Bible? Or to ask the question another way, do the stories distract from the law? If Torah is meant to be a book of laws, a book of commandments, then why not get right down to business and open with law? It should read like a book you would read in law school. And the stories can be left, as I said, there is a book called the Medrash that has many additional biblical stories. So why have any stories in the Bible at all? Put all the stories in a storybook, but the Torah should be straight out law, morality, ethical conduct, ritual between God and man, a judicial system that governs between man and man, a code of conduct governing man's relationship with the physical world, man's relationship with animal life, with plant life, with the environment. Now, everything that I just mentioned is indeed covered in the Torah. The Torah will cover every aspect of life and man's role in this life. And yet we will find that a great deal of attention in the Bible is in storytelling. The Torah has a lot of characters. They're not fictional characters. They're real ones. They lived. They were real people. And there are many plots. But as how we have been discovering and will continue to discover, it's more than just a story. It's still Torah. Torah comes from the word hora'ah, teachings. You see, it's not just a book of law. It's more than that. It's a book of life, of every moment, of every challenge, of every triumph of life. What the story does is the story allows us to relate. The story allows us to put ourselves into it. We all know you read a good book, you watch a good film, and you're putting yourself in there. You're thinking, what if that was me? We place ourselves at the scene of a story. We connect to the story because it's about human beings. We think, how would we have reacted if we were there? Or better put, how should we react if we are faced with a similar dilemma in our lives? The Torah is not just about law, it's about characters as well. And we learn the character of the Jew from the stories, both how to behave and how not to behave. And so we have been focusing in this biblical reflection course this year on the stories of the book of Genesis. And thus far, we've covered the stories of Adam and Eve. We've gone through the story of the Garden of Eden, the commandment not to eat from the forbidden fruit. We've gone through the story of Cain and Abel, Noah and the flood, the Tower of Babel, the revolution of Abraham, and the binding of Isaac. And if you've missed any of those, they're all available. You can see all of the classes that we gave this year on this course of biblical reflections on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Rabbi Moshe Bryski. Moshe spelled Moshe, Bryski spelled Bryski. So youtube.com/Rabbi Moshe Bryski is our YouTube channel. There's a channel there for biblical reflections, and all the classes of this year are there. It has been, one of the highlights, so to say, in the year of difficulties of this pandemic, of the COVID outbreak. At the same time, there's this silver lining that we have, in which we've been opened up to this world of Zoom, which allows us to now have our classes broadcast through all the world, whether it's through Zoom or YouTube or Facebook. And thus far on the YouTube channel, we've had, since we began this year, 40,000 views. And so let's continue that climb of spreading the Torah and teaching the Torah to every corner of the world. This semester, we begin with Jacob. Jacob, the third of the three patriarchs. He is the son of Isaac. His mother is Rebekah. He is the grandson of Abraham and Sarah. Okay, so you get the tree. There's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham was the first. Isaac is the son of Abraham. Jacob is one of the sons of Isaac. His mother's name is Rebekah. These are the characters you're going to need to remember. I want to set the scene for you, okay? After the binding of Isaac, and of course, I think by now you all know Isaac was not slaughtered during the episode of the binding of Isaac. His life was spared by God. It was just a test of Abraham's faith. Abraham's main focus was now for Isaac to get married. That's what he wanted. For the rest of his life, his focus was going to be, I got to get this kid married off. I want to have grandchildren. He wants to see the continuity of this revolution guaranteed. And so he sends his servant Eliezer to his relatives in Haran from before he came to the land of Israel, from his birthplace, to find a wife from his relatives for his son Isaac. And through divine intervention, it's clear that God has selected Rebekah as the next matriarch of the Jewish people. Eliezer comes back with Rebekah, with the approval of Rebekah's family, for Isaac and Rebekah to get married, and they get married. They're married for many years without children. And after intense prayers, Rebekah becomes pregnant. But the Torah tells us that it was a difficult pregnancy. It was hard. And the Midrash adds a story to this pregnancy, that it was not just a difficult pregnancy, that there was a lot of pain in the pregnancy, but it was a confusing pregnancy as well. And the Midrash tells us a story that anytime Rebekah was walking and she would pass a place of idol worship, she would feel kicking as if the child within her womb wants to come out, which confused her. Why do I have a child that wants to come out of me when I pass a house of idol worship? When she would pass her husband's study hall, again, the kicking would take place. And again, she's confused. Make up your mind. Do you want to get out where your father is involved in the study of divine, of God, of godliness? Or do you want to get out in the place of idol worship? Who are you? What's going on here? Now, at some point in our studies, weeks from now, I want to come back to the story to address the question of free choice. How is it possible that a child within a womb has a desire either for idol worship or for study? We'll leave that for another time. I will address that question at another time. It's a good question. But what we have here is that Rebecca is going through a difficult pregnancy, okay? So she goes to a prophet and she tells the prophet, I'm having an extremely difficult time with my pregnancy. Can you ask God, can you pray to God on my behalf? What's going on? And the prophet shares with Rebecca God's words for her. And it's a private prophecy. It's only for her. And this is what she's told, that she should know that there are 2 children within her womb, that she's pregnant with twins. This was before ultrasound. So you had a prophet that would tell her, you're pregnant with twins. And then the prophet adds, the children will not be alike. They're not going to be the same. And I'll quote to you from verse 23. God says to her, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 regimes from your insides shall be separated. And the might shall pass from one regime to the other. And the elder shall serve the younger. Remember those words. The elder shall serve the younger. It was implied to her that this was a personal communication between God and her, and not for her to share, at least not for now. The twins are born. The first child comes out with reddish complexion. They name him Esau. The second child comes out holding the heel of his twin brother. He's holding on, like trying to say, no, you can't get out first. I'm going to get out first. He comes in a very close second. So they name him Jacob. Jacob comes from the word Akev. Akev means heel. He was grabbing on to his brother's heel. So they named him heel, which is Yaakov, Jacob. So let's look at this. We have the pregnancy and the prophecy. Rebecca knows that these twins will be rivals. Rebecca knows that the older will serve the younger. You're going to have to keep these facts in mind, although I'll keep reminding you of them. Next, the Torah tells us, next part of the story, the twins grow up. And the Torah tells us, as we will have predicted, because we knew the prophecy as well, because we studied that when we studied about Rebecca visiting the prophet, they have different personalities. They're not the same, exactly as the prophet had told Rebecca. And the Torah tells us the personalities of each. And it tells us that Esau was a hunter. Now, the last time hunter was used in the Bible was when it defined Cain. And that didn't end well. Jacob, it tells us, was called a dweller in tents. What does dweller in tents mean? He liked to study. He liked to go to school. He liked to study from his father. He liked to exercise the mind. Now, these are biblical code words, I would say. The narrator of the Torah, the author of the Torah, which I clearly believe is God himself, is leading the audience of the Torah to understand what was going on internally, what was happening here. That Isaac has 2 sons. One is choosing one path, the path of the hunter. Remember what happened the last time we had a hunter, Cain? And then there's another son, who's the most spiritual son. So we, the audience, are already getting the sense of what these 2 sons are like. We also know from the prophecy, because we study the prophecy, but keep in mind, Isaac, the father of the twins, doesn't know the prophecy. He has a firstborn son and a second twin son. And here's the interesting thing. The Torah tells us that Isaac had this very close bond with Esau, with the firstborn. It was natural. Why did he love Esau so much? It says because he hunted for him. He fed him. He knew the meats that his father liked. He knew the foods his father liked. He would go out and prepare it for him. He was a great expert hunter. It says that Esau showed tremendous respect for his father. He loved his father, and he showed tremendous respect for him. Thousands of years later in the Talmud says, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said, all my life I have served my father, but I did not reach 100th of the level of honor that Esau showed his father Isaac. So we don't diminish the fact that Esau showed tremendous respect to his father Isaac. And the Torah tells us Isaac loved Esau. Now, some look into the words and say it's a play on words. When it says that he hunted for his father, it means that he hunted with his mouth, which means he fooled him. Esau was good at fooling his father that he was his pride and joy. Parents at times don't want to know the truth, so they allow themselves to be fooled by children because they don't really want to know. Because if Esau truly loved his father, he would have changed his ways for him. He loved being loved by his father, and he was good at the charade. Esau was in love with the love that his father showed him. That's what he had. The Torah continues this odd story. Rebekah loved Jacob more. So we have parents and twins, and the Torah is clearly defining for us that there is favoritism. Isaac is showing favoritism towards Esau. Rebekah is showing favoritism towards Jacob. Now we know the next story of the Bible, which will be the next story that we're going to study together, and that's the story of Joseph. We know what favoritism does in that story. It plays a major role in that story as well. Jacob will show favoritism to Joseph, which will cause jealousy from the other brothers. So favoritism by parents could have many, many consequences. And the Torah puts it all out there for us. This is what's developing in this story. Why does Rebekah love Jacob? The Torah tells us she wasn't blind, right? She saw the reality. She saw it for what it was. She wasn't being fooled by any of this. More than that, she was saddened by Esau's behavior. She was troubled by how her husband was being fooled by him. But at the same time, keep in mind that she has an advantage over her husband. What's that? She had the prophecy. She knows that this is going to unfold this way. Now, the Torah gives us some snapshots. It's interesting. The Torah uses this technique in its storytelling ways, where it gives you little snapshots, and it wants you to put the story together. It doesn't read once upon a time and gives you every detail of the story. Instead, it gives you a picture here, a picture there, a picture there, and it wants you to work on connecting the dots. This is how we put ourselves into these stories, because we put ourselves into these snapshots. So here's a snapshot. Esau gets married. Now, we know, since we've been introduced to Abraham and the Abraham family, that they do not marry Canaanites. They always go back home to their birthplace to find members from their family to marry. Cousins. They stay within the family. The Torah tells us that Esau marries a Hittite from the Canaanite nations. And this was very painful for his parents, because up until then, it was known this family will not intermarry with the Canaanites. Esau does. And he knew that they didn't want him to marry her, but he chose to go ahead with it anyhow. And then we have another story. It's a short story in the Bible, but it's very, very important for us to have a better understanding of the main story that we're going to be talking about tonight and the next week and the week thereafter. So I'm going to share the screen with you right now. I'm going to put some verses up on the screen. And we're going to look at this short story, and then we'll move on. Now, Jacob cooked a pottage. He's cooking something. Esau comes in from the field, and he was faint. He was tired. He was exhausted. A long day of hunting out there, and he's hungry. Esau says to Jacob, verse 30, pour into me, that means just I'm going to open my mouth and feed me, some of this red pottage. According to tradition, it was some type of lentils that he was cooking, for I am faint. And he was therefore named Edom. The Esau of nations to come, the descendants of Esau was called the nation of Edom, which means red, from this story that he wanted some of this red pottage. And Jacob says, sell me as of this day your birthright. I'll give you the food. I want a deal. I want to exchange the rights to being the firstborn. Esau replies, behold, I'm going to die. So why do I need this birthright? Hey, I'm a hunter. I am involved in dangerous things. I'm not planning on living this long life. I'm living an adventurous life. This birthright is meaningless to me. The birthright was a spiritual role. When the family brought an offering, the firstborn would bring it. There was something spiritual about it. Esau had no desire for it, couldn't care less. He would rather have this pot of beans. So Jacob says, swear to me as of this day. So he swore to him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob, literally for a pot of beans. And Jacob gave Esau bread and a pottage of lentils, and he ate and he drank, and he arose and left. And I put in bold these last few words here. And Esau despised the birthright. Now, again, the author of the Torah puts these words in. Namely, God is talking to us, the audience, and saying, I want you to know that my takeaway from what just took place in these last few verses is that Esau showed no respect whatsoever to the spiritual role of this family. There was no respect for it. He wasn't interested in it. He didn't care for it. He was a hunter. He was into enjoying life. So there's no respect for anything spiritual or holy. He despised what it represented. He mocked the whole mission concept, that this family has a mission to change the world. I'll meet my end in the field. This is my life. You, Jacob, you can keep this mission stuff. So that's some background for you. All of this that I said to you thus far tonight is background to the story of the blessings, to the story of the great disguise. Again, let me set the scene for you. Isaac gets old. And when he gets old, he also loses his eyesight. He's blind. And he wants to bless Esau before he dies. He thinks, for some reason, he believes that his end is very near. He's old, he's blind, he doesn't think he has much time left in this world. And so before he dies, he wants to bless his firstborn son. Remember, it's his favorite son. And so he instructs Esau, and he says, listen, I want to give you some blessings before I die. But what I would like you to do is I'd like you to set the mood. So go out in the field, bring back the food that I like, we'll have a meal together, and then I'm going to give you the blessings. Rebecca, Isaac's wife, the mother of the twins, overheard this conversation. So she overhears her husband saying to her son, go out in the field, hunt the food that I like, prepare it for me, bring me dinner, and then I will eat from your dinner and I will give you blessings. So you know what she does. Many of you are familiar with it because you're familiar with the story, but I'm sure you have many, many questions on the story, as you should. She calls Jacob in, and she tells Jacob to follow her orders, that she wants him to disguise himself as Esau. Remember, Isaac is blind. I will give you food. I got some leftovers in the fridge that he likes. I'll dress it up with some sauce or something. She doesn't say that, but we're imagining it. You'll go in, you'll make believe you're Esau, and you'll get the blessings. Jacob, as we will see in the text very soon, resists at first. He says, I can't do this. I can't lie to my father. I can't be dishonest. I can't disguise myself as Esau. It goes against everything I represent. This is not going to bring me blessings. This is going to bring me a curse. And as you will see in the text, Rebecca will insist. She'll use the words, Alai klaloscha beni. If there's any cursing that will take place, it's on my shoulders. I'm not asking you to do this, Jacob. I'm telling you to do this. I'm dictating as your mother. You must do this. And so what I'd like to do for this evening is read the entire story in the text, exactly word for word in English translation, as the Bible presents it to us, which will leave you with many questions. And that's just the way I want to leave you off, so that you have a whole week to think about these questions, to debate these questions, to ask others these questions. And then next week we come back together and we start unraveling it. We start looking into it. We start peeling away the layers to see how do we make sense of it, and what's the Torah telling us in this story. So here we go. I'm going to again share the screen. I'm going to put up Genesis chapter 27. Verse number 1. And if you want to just scribble down, it's Genesis chapter 27. You could look it up again later if you want to remember it. We're going to go through the entire chapter 27 and a few verses of chapter 28. Verse 1. It came to pass when Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, that he called Esau his elder son, and he said to him, my son, and he said to him, here I am. And he said, behold, now I have grown old. I do not know the day of my death. So now sharpen your implements, your sword, and take your bow, and go forth to the field and hunt game for me. And make for me tasty foods as I like, and bring them to me, and I will eat, in order that my soul will bless you before I die. But Rebekah overheard when Isaac spoke to Esau his son, and Esau went into the field to hunt game to bring it. Rebekah says to Jacob her son, saying, behold, I have heard your father speaking to Esau your brother, saying, bring me game and make me tasty foods, and I will eat, and I will bless you before the Lord, before my death. And now, my son, hearken to my voice, to what I am commanding you. Verse 9. Go now to the flock and take for me from there 2 choice kids, and I will make them tasty food for your father as he likes. And you shall bring them to your father that he may eat, in order that he bless you before his death. And Jacob says to Rebekah his mother, behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, whereas I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will touch me, and I will appear to him as a deceiver, and I will bring upon myself a curse, and not a blessing. And his mother said to him, on me is your curse, my son. Only hearken to my voice, and go take them for me. So he went, and he took, and he brought them to his mother, and his mother made tasty foods as his father liked. And Rebekah took the costly garments of Esau, her elder son, which were with her in the house, and she dressed Jacob, her younger son. And the hides of the kids she put on his hands and on the smoothness of his neck. And she gave the tasty foods and the bread that she had made into the hands of Jacob, her son. And he came to his father and he said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" And Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you have spoken to me. Please rise, sit down, and eat of my game so that your soul will bless me." And Isaac says to his son, "How is it that you found it so quickly, my son?" And he said, "Because the Lord your God prepared it before me." Verse 21, Isaac says to Jacob, "Please come closer so that I may feel you, my son, whether you're really my son Esau or not." I'll pause here for a moment. You get the idea here that between verse 20 and 21, somehow a suspicion comes over Isaac that I don't know that this guy in front of me is Esau. Why is he suspicious? See verse 20. How did Jacob answer? "How did you make it so fast?" "Because the Lord your God prepared it for me." Esau doesn't talk that way. Esau doesn't give credit to God. Suddenly this fellow that's talking is talking about God. That doesn't sound Esau-like. So come closer. I need to touch you. I need to know, is this really you, Esau, or not? Verse 22. So Jacob drew near to Isaac, his father, and he felt him. Now remember, his mother put the kid's skin on his hand so that he would feel hairy, like Esau was. And what does Isaac say? And he said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He's confused. You speak like Jacob, but you feel like Esau. At some point, we're going to get back to this verse because this is a very prophetic words here. The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Remember that verse for later. And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like the hands of his brother Esau. And he blessed him. He went ahead with it. And then he says again, "Are you indeed my son Esau?" Again, you see, he's questioning and he said, "I am." That's all he answers. "I am." And he said, "Serve it to me that I may eat of the game of my son so that my soul will bless you." And he served him and he ate, and he brought him wine and he drank. And his father Isaac said to him, "Please come closer and kiss me, my son." And he came closer and he kissed him. And he smelled the fragrance of his garments, and he blessed him. And he said, "Behold, the fragrance of my son is like the fragrance of a field which the Lord has blessed. And may the Lord give you of the dew of the heavens and of the fatness of the earth and an abundance of grain and wine. Nations shall serve you, and kingdoms shall bow down to you. You shall be a master over your brothers, and your mother's sons shall bow down to you. Those who curse you shall be cursed, and those who bless you shall be blessed." Those are powerful, powerful blessings. Again, at some point, we're going to review it again, but just these words over here: "May the Lord give you of the dew of the heavens, of the fatness of the earth, abundance of grain and wine. Nation shall serve you, and kingdom shall bow down to you. You shall be a master over your brothers. Your mother's son shall bow down to you. Those who curse you shall be cursed. Those who bless you shall be blessed." And it came to pass, when Isaac finished blessing Jacob, and he came to pass, Jacob had just left his father Isaac's presence, just like a Hollywood film would have it. He walks out one door, and what happens? The other door opens, that his brother Esau comes in from his hunt. Verse 31. And he too made tasty food. And he brought them to his father. And he says to his father, let my father arise and eat of the game of his son, so that your soul will bless me. And his father Isaac said to him, who are you? And he said, I am your son, your firstborn Esau. And Isaac shuddered a great shudder. And he said, who then is the one who hunted game and brought it to me? And I ate of everything while you had not yet come. And I blessed him. And he too shall be blessed. Those blessings remain. When Esau heard his father's words, he cried out a great and bitter cry, and he said to his father, bless me too, O my father. It's all right, so you gave him blessings. Give me some also. You gave him, give me some. And he said, your brother came with cunning and took your blessing. And he said, is it for this reason that he was named Jacob? For he has now deceived me twice. He took my birthright, and behold, now he has taken my blessings. This is the first time Isaac finds out that he ever gave over the birthright for that pot of pottage. And he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? He says to his father, you don't have anything left in the tank for me? And Isaac answers and says to Esau, behold, I made him a master over you, and I gave him all his brothers as servants, and I have sustained him with corn and with wine. So for you then, what shall I do, my son? You belong to him now. And Esau says to his father, have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father. And Esau raised his voice and wept. And his father Isaac answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling place shall be the fat places of the earth and the dew of the heaven from above. And you shall live by your sword, and you shall serve your brother. And it will be when you grieve that you will break his yoke off your neck. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessings that his father had blessed him. And Esau says to himself, let the days of mourning for my father draw near. I will then kill my brother Jacob. He plots now to kill his brother. He's that angry. Rebekah is told of the words of Esau, her elder son, and she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and she said to him, behold, your brother Esau regrets his relationship to you, and he wishes to kill you. And now, my son, hearken to my voice once again, and arise, flee to my brother Lavan to Haran. You better get out of here. I'm sending you to my brother's house, which was no picnic, and you shall dwell with him for a few days until your brother's wrath has subsided, until your brother's rage subsides from you and he forgets what you did to him, and I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereft of both of you on one day? And Rebekah says to Isaac, I am disgusted with my life because of the daughters of Ches. If Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Ches like these from the daughters of this land, of what use is life to me? So Rebekah now says to Isaac, we got to get Jacob out of here. She doesn't say because of Esau. She says because he needs to get married, and these are not girls I want to have as my daughter-in-law. Chapter 28. 4 more verses, and then we'll sum it up. Isaac called Jacob and blessed him, and commanded him and said to him, you shall not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise and go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take yourself from there a wife of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And may the Almighty God bless you, and make you fruitful and multiply, and you shall become an assembly of peoples, and he may give you the blessings of Abraham, to you and to your seed with you, that you may inherit the land of your sojournings, which God gave to Abraham. By now, I would imagine that each of you have about 40 questions, because every single verse leads to another question and another question and another question of, how does this make any sense? So many questions to ask. We will dissect. We will delve into these verses. We will delve into the story. You see, there are 5 characters that we need to really understand in this story, and we're going to delve into each one. Okay? 5 characters to look into. Who are the 5 characters of our story? Character number 1, Isaac. What's he thinking? Why does he want to give the blessings to Esau? What are the blessings that he wants to give him? Did Isaac really believe that Esau was going to be the next patriarch of the Jewish people? Was he that blind that he did not see that one was spiritual and one was a hunter? What does it mean he wanted to give his firstborn Esau blessings? We need to understand Isaac. Rebecca, we need to understand her. Esau, we need to understand him. You remember one part of the story, give me that pottage, I don't care about this birthright. And the next story, he's crying away, God, you have one blessing for me, can't you give me one blessing? I thought he didn't care about this stuff. How are we to understand Esau? Jacob, wow, we got to understand Jacob. What's Jacob thinking? What's he doing? What's his role in this whole story? Who is the 5th character? I said 5 characters. There's only 4 that we spoke about. Who's the 5th character? The 5th character is God. Because God's behind the curtain here. He's playing both sides, right? God's very involved in this story. And so we're going to try to understand the godly part of this story. We got lots of work to do. During this week, I want you to think about this text. If you want to look back in the book of Genesis to review it, and literally come up with your questions. If you'd like to drop me an email of some of the questions that you have, please go ahead, send it to rabbi@chabadkaneo.com. Chances are we will be covering it in the weeks to come. I want to wish all of you a wonderful week. Stay safe and healthy, everybody. Wednesday afternoon, we're going to go ahead and have our lunch and learn, the return of our lunch and learn class. We don't serve lunch, but we hope that you have your own lunch. It's at Wednesday at 12:30. We study from the book of Deuteronomy, Moses' final speech to the Jewish people about us being the chosen people throughout all of history. We look forward to seeing you in all of our Zoom classes. Have a great one. Thanks for joining.